Christmas pudding wasn't just dessert. It was a flaming death trap with a hidden coin that could choke you. And we loved every second of it. If you were a kid in 1960s Britain, Christmas wasn't about convenience. It was about survival, patience, and a kind of magic that doesn't exist anymore. The cold bit harder, the excitement lasted longer, and every single tradition came with a story that modern kids wouldn't believe. These 10 memories prove it. Picture this. The lights are off. Your mom walks in carrying a Christmas pudding that's literally on fire, blue flames dancing across the top like something from a horror film. And somewhere inside that dense, dark pudding is a silver sixpence. Whoever finds it gets good luck for the year. But here's the catch. You could also crack a tooth, or worse, swallow it whole. Nobody warned you about choking hazards back then. There were no safety labels, no parental panic, just pure reckless tradition. You dig your spoon in, heart racing, hoping you'd be the lucky one. The pudding itself was heavy, packed with dried fruit that had been soaking in brandy for weeks. It tasted rich, boozy, and almost too intense for a child. But that coin, that made it worth every bite. And when someone finally hit metal with their spoon, the whole table erupted. It wasn't about the money, it was about being chosen by Christmas itself.
Decorations didn't come in a box. You made them by hand with strips of colored paper and glue that tasted like punishment. Paper chains were the backbone of every living room's Christmas transformation. You'd sit at the kitchen table for hours, looping one strip through another, licking the glue on the end to seal it. That glue was foul, bitter, chemical, the kind of taste that made your face scrunch up every single time. But you kept going because this was your job, your contribution. And when those chains finally went up, stretched across the ceiling corner to corner, you felt proud. You built this. Some families added tinsel, others hung homemade stars, but the paper chains were universal. They were effort made visible. And when they came down in January, slightly torn and faded, you remembered every loop you made. Hold on, did you know that one Christmas in the 60s was so cold the Thames actually started to freeze? We'll get to that. But first, central heating was a luxury most families didn't have. Instead, there was the paraffin heater, a squat metal contraption that sat in the corner of the room, glowing orange and pumping out a thick, oily smell that clung to everything. Your clothes, the curtains, your hair. It was the scent of survival. On Christmas morning, that heater would be roaring. The room would be warm in a small radius around it, but everywhere else stayed freezing. You'd unwrap presents as close to it as possible, fingers still numb, breath visible in the air. The smell mixed with the pine from the tree, the coal burning in the fireplace if you had one, and the roasting meat from the kitchen. It wasn't pleasant, but it was Christmas. And decades later, that smell would hit you randomly, maybe from an old garage or a vintage shop, and you'd be 8 years old again, sitting on a cold floor, ripping open a present you'd been dreaming about for months. Now, about that freeze. The winter of 1962 into 1963 was the coldest in over 200 years. Snow started falling on Boxing Day in 1962 and didn't properly melt until March. The country shut down. Schools closed for weeks. Roads became impassable. The Thames froze in places. And Christmas landed right in the middle of it. For kids, it was a wonderland. Snowdrifts taller than adults. Ice thick enough to stand on. Streets turned into sledding runs. Entire neighborhoods came together, digging out driveways, sharing coal, checking on the elderly. It was brutal, but it was also beautiful in a way that only hardship can be. Parents struggled, keeping the house warm, getting food, making sure there were still presents under the tree, but they did it. And for children, that Christmas became legendary, not despite the cold, but because of it, because it was real, because you could feel it in your bones. But here's the thing, once you finally got inside, warmed up by that paraffin heater, you had something waiting for you that made it all worth it. The Beano Annual, the Dandy Annual, Bunty for the girls. These weren't just comics, they were treasures. Thick, hardback books released once a year, packed with stories, puzzles, and illustrations that you'd devour in one sitting by the fire, then read again and again. There was no internet, no streaming, no endless content, so these annuals mattered. You'd memorize every story, trace the drawings, spend hours on the crossword puzzles. Some kids got multiple annuals, others had to share. Either way, they lasted the whole year. And they smelled amazing. Fresh ink and paper, that new book smell mixed with the wood smoke from the fire. You'd sit there, fingers black from the print, completely absorbed in worlds of mischief, adventure, and laughter. Dennis the Menace causing chaos, Desperate Dan eating cow pies. These characters were your friends. By the end of the year, the pages would be worn, corners dog-eared, maybe a juice stain or two. But that just proved how loved they were. You didn't throw them away, you kept them. And years later, you'd find one in the attic and lose yourself all over again.
Selection boxes today are tiny, depressing. A few fun-sized bars that disappear in minutes. But in the 1860s, selection boxes were serious business. Cadbury's, Roundtree's, Nestle, they all made versions that were huge, packed with full-size chocolate bars. Mars, Milky Way, Maltesers, Smarties, all in one box. And the boxes themselves were sturdy. Colorful, illustrated cardboard that you'd keep and use for storage long after the chocolate was gone. Buttons, toy soldiers, marbles, they all ended up in old selection boxes shoved under beds or in cupboards. The chocolate was rationed carefully. You didn't eat it all at once because who knew when you'd get more? So you'd have one bar a day, maybe two if it was a special occasion. And you'd savor it, let it melt slowly, make it last. That discipline was built into the experience. Scarcity bred appreciation. But wait, because nothing defined Christmas morning quite like the toy you'd been begging for all year finally appearing under the tree. Doctor Who introduced the Daleks in 1963. By Christmas 1964, every child in Britain wanted one. Plastic, battery-powered, screeching exterminate as it rolled across the floor. They sold out everywhere. Parents fought over them. It was chaos. Then came Thunderbirds, the Tracy brothers and their iconic vehicles. Thunderbird 2 was the big one. Green, chunky, detachable pod underneath. If you got one for Christmas, you were royalty at school for weeks. For girls, Cindy dolls became the obsession, the British answer to Barbie. Cheaper, more accessible, and everywhere. She came with different outfits, tiny accessories, and the whole world to build around her. Some families couldn't afford her, so they made do with knockoffs or homemade clothes. These toys weren't just objects, they were cultural moments, driven by television that everyone watched at the same time. No on-demand, no choice. If Doctor Who aired on Saturday evening, the whole country tuned in. That collective experience made the toys more powerful. You weren't just playing, you were part of something bigger. Christmas Day television was an event. The Queen's speech at 3 p.m., the whole family gathered around the black and white set, silent, respectful. Then came the films. Wizard of Oz was a regular, old Hollywood classics, maybe a comedy special. There were only 2 channels for most of the decade, BBC and ITV. That was it. So when something aired, millions watched simultaneously. It created shared references, shared jokes, shared memories. The next day at school, everyone talked about the same thing, because everyone saw the same thing. The TV itself was a piece of furniture, big, heavy, wood-paneled. It sat in the corner like a shrine, and it took time to warm up. You'd switch it on and wait for the picture to appear, crackling into focus. No instant gratification, just patience. But here's what made all of this, every tradition, every struggle, every freezing morning, actually stick with you. Christmas in the 60s was hard.
Parents saved all year to afford presents. Mothers spent days preparing food. Fathers worked overtime in November and December just to make it special. Nothing was handed to you. Everything was earned. And as a child, you felt that. You understood, even without being told, that this day mattered, that it cost something, that the warmth, the food, the gifts, the decorations, they were all acts of love. That's why the memory stuck. Not because everything was perfect, but because everything was intentional. The paper chains you made by hand, the comic you read until it fell apart, the selection box you rationed across weeks, the toy you dreamed about finally sitting there under the tree. Modern Christmas is easier, faster, more convenient, but it's also more forgettable because ease doesn't create meaning. Effort does, struggle does, and 60s kids knew that without needing to say it. The final memory isn't an object or a tradition, it's a feeling. The whole family in one room. Grandparents, parents, kids, maybe an aunt or uncle, squeezed together, sharing space, sharing food, sharing time. No phones, no distractions, just presence. The wireless might be playing carols, someone's telling a story, a board game's out on the floor. The fire's burning low, the paraffin heater's still glowing. Outside, it's dark and cold and silent, but inside, for this one day, everything feels right. That togetherness wasn't optional, it was survival, because houses were small, money was tight, and entertainment was limited. So you made your own. You talked, you laughed, you existed together. And that absence of distraction created connection that modern families struggle to replicate. This wasn't nostalgia, it was reality. And for kids growing up in 1960s Britain, Christmas was colder, harder, and simpler, but it burned brighter because of it.
And here's the strange part. Those kids grew up and told their own children about these Christmases. But something got lost in translation. Because you can describe the silver sixpence, the paper chains, the freezing mornings, but you can't recreate the feeling of earning it, of waiting for it, of knowing that this one day, this one meal, these few presents, they represented months of sacrifice. Unless you lived it, you'll never fully understand why those memories refuse to fade. Even now, 60 years later, when everything about the world has changed, those 60s kids close their eyes and they're back there, standing in the cold, smelling the paraffin, tasting that bitter glue, and feeling, just for a moment, like Christmas meant something.